Right, I'm often asked about meditation, so I will talk about my experiences with it, and I'll share some tips because a little bit of knowledge enables understanding. And if you're trying to do something, there has to be a purpose, because seldom does anybody do anything for nothing. Now, the thing about meditation is you get nothing initially. A Buddha reflected that because he was asked why he meditates and what does it give him, and Buddha replied, "Oh, it gives me nothing." And the passerby asked, well, stated, "Then what's the point in doing it then?" Which is typical of the carnal mind. And then Buddha replied, "It takes away my anxiety, my stress, and everything else." Now, the reason for meditation is to settle the seas so that the body can do what it needs to do, because the body has its own intrinsic intelligence. But all too often the mind fucks that up and causes chaos. And you have got to find the order out of that chaos. Now that sounds a bit Masonic. That sounds a bit New World Order. Well, this is, because this is the New World. And this needs order. Okay. I say this over and over again. Stop looking outside. Which is all, but you're going to. But when you look outside and you see things, eat it, chew the cud, then turn it inwardly. Especially in your day-to-day life, because there'll be little pearls there on your journey to pick up, and they're for you. But you won't see these pearls if your sea has consumed you. But if the sea is calm, they will be so obvious. But like all good things, it takes time for trees to grow. So, Medi means middle. And you are basically meeting yourself halfway. And yourself is the intermediary between your mind and the unified field, the good Father. Now, to get to the good Father, you need to get in touch with your higher self. But to do that, you've got to walk away from your father's house. This is what God told Abraham to do. Walk away from your father's house. Now, that means walking away from politics, walking away from religion, walking away from patriotism, statism, or any other ism. Because this is about you, the individual. It's not about what your mind thinks it is. You've got to get beyond that. So the reason you clear all that garbage out is because your psychology actually means science of the soul, you're attaching yourself to these things. And by doing so, you are disempowering yourself. But you might have a desire to be patriotic. Now the word desire is desire. Sire, to sire a child, means to father. So you are defathering yourself. You are depowering yourself. Okay? Now desires are going to come, but you've got to be mindful of them and not let them consume you. And when you overcome desire, that is when you can then get into like a flow state. And then these things come to you anyway. Okay? And that's what makes the journey so much more... So it's easier because you might have a desire for a particular outcome. But the desire of having that that want or that need is what stops it from coming. But if you recognize that you have a particular want or need, acknowledge it, then put it away, and it will come with time. Now, the basics of meditation is to take no thought. And people don't understand this. Taking something means you're taking possession of it. Now, in meditation, most people try to silence the mind. You can't. It's impossible. It's a chimpanzee's tea party. Let the mind do whatever it wants. Just don't take possession of anything it puts in front of you. So as you're meditating, you might be thinking your mind might present a thought, and that thought will be something like, oh, I'm meditating, but the ventilator's on in it, and the air, it's tickling my feet. So, oh right, I'll just ignore it. Too late, you've taken possession of the thought, and now you've got a distraction. You see how this works? So your mind, being the chimpanzee that it is, will do anything to get your attention, because where attention goes, energy flows. So it will present a problem or something, and it's always idiotic. Whatever it presents just doesn't matter, but it will present itself a thought nevertheless, and you've got to ignore that. Just and in time, as your meditation practices progress, your mind will just naturally become quieter, because it knows it's not the boss anymore. It's just a servant. And when a servant isn't needed, it stands quietly. It's nearby. It's a neighbour. And it's always there, ready to serve you, and it's happy to do so when it is called upon. Okay, that's the relationship we should be having with our minds. Don't expect any results. The act of expectation is a desire. Okay, so you are disabling this magic, if you will. Right. Now, meditation is to be done secretly. Don't make a big song and dance about it. Don't let everybody around you, oh, I'm going to meditate now, I'm off to walk with God, or any of that, because you just look like a cunt. Meditation is done secretly. You go somewhere quiet. Now, if you're in a relationship or something and your partner knows you're doing this kind of thing, that's fine. You just let them know, oh, I'm just going to have some downtime, or I'm just going to check out for a little bit. So you just go off. So what I do, I'm in my boudoir, and in my room, I'll turn the lights off, or I'll put a face mask on, the airplane eye shields, or I'll get a towel and just put it across my eyes to stop light coming in, because I want to be able to see, and if I've got light coming in, it disturbs that process. That's the point of a head covering. It's not to walk around with a silly skull cap like the Catholics and the Jews do. It's just absurd. So you have darkness, and then you enter into your secret place that only you know. So now, this is what I have. This is where I am now when I meditate. This is what I'm experiencing. So I'll share my experiences with you. So basically, I will sit on this sofa. I will keep my head and my neck and my spine in a straight line, but not uncomfortably. I don't want to be sitting bolt upright. I just want to be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't need to be fundamentalists about this. We don't need to be, like a bloody Jesuit. This is an exploration of your inner landscape. So you make yourself comfortable, but not to the point where you're going to fall asleep. So basically, you get yourself in a position where you're comfortable, and you have your 5 senses. And when your 5 senses are there, you can apply your attention, your awareness, which is consciousness, to each of the 5 senses. Now this is a beginner's thing, so you could put it onto touch, and you could move your awareness to your toes. Wiggle your toes a little bit as you're getting comfortable. You know, where your arse is meeting the seat. Shift it around a little bit, get yourself comfortable. And you're doing this over a couple of minutes. And then you can shift your awareness to your hearing. But don't be listening to anything external. Listen to your breathing. Then you're feeling your heartbeat. And so on and so forth. Now, this promotes relaxation in the body. And you'll notice as well that where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're listening to your breathing, your sense of touch gets turned off. So if you have an itch and you don't want to move, let's say you've become aware of a feeling on your foot, perhaps it's an insect, a fly, but you're getting into that kind of state and you can feel the brain waves changing. And you don't want to move because that's going to excite the brain, and that brainwave state will be lost temporarily. And you want to exercise a little bit of self-discipline. So there's an irritant on your foot, but it's not the end of the world. So you consciously put your attention back onto your breathing. With regards to breathing, it's the breath of life. Take a deep breath now. Now, most people inhale into their chest. This is wrong. Look at children, 1.5 to 3 years old. They belly breathe. They have these little bellies that stick out, nice and round, and they're breathing into their belly when they're excited. That's the natural way to breathe. So, take a deep breath again, but this time you want to breathe into the lower abdomen, into your belly. This is why Buddha was a fat fucker, because he's a belly breather. And he sat under the tree, the brain, for 7 years, the chakras. Okay? So you deep breathe into the belly. And you'll find that the chest expands as well as the belly, and you get a good hit of oxygen. That oxygen goes into the blood. The breath of life feeds the blood. The character Jesus said, the life is in the blood. What you're effectively doing when you breathe like this is you are supercharging the blood with oxygen. The brain uses a lot of oxygen, needs a lot of energy. But you're not using much energy in the body because you're in a state of relaxation. But your blood has become supercharged. Now, because your blood's supercharged, your awareness will become supercharged. And what I do now is when I'm meditating is I take deep cyclic breaths, circular breathing. So I breathe in deeply and I get to the top of the breath and I have a pause. About 1.5 to 2 seconds. It's not forced, it's just a natural pause. And then I exhale, but without any force. But I exhale fully, and then I have another natural pause. And this is actually how I go to sleep. It's how I enter my meditative state. It's my routine. It's my pattern. It's how I've learnt to know myself. So you might have a different routine slightly. But I would suggest that you start with my suggestions, and then as you know yourself, you will adapt accordingly. So you're breathing. And so on and so forth. And you keep doing this, and your mind will be chucking up thoughts. Now you might get caught unaware and start to entertain the mind, and then you'll realise and you'll be annoyed with yourself. Don't worry about it. Just shift your focus back to your breathing and start having a relationship with your breathing. Relate to it. Put all your awareness onto it. Where attention goes, energy flows, and the brain will ignore the mind. Okay? And the mind will learn to be quiet. Now, recently what I've been learning is that when I put my fingers together in particular positions, I can shift a particular energy in my body. Now, I have looked at mudras. These are called mudras, and I've looked at them in the past, and I've read some stuff about them. But I'll be totally authentic with you. It bored me fucking shitless. There was just so much information, it was overwhelming. So I figured, fuck it, I'll be taught that when I need to be taught it. So what I've been learning recently is that when I touch the different fingers on both hands, I can move the energy to different parts of my body. Now, I'm not going to relate to what mudras I use or what parts of the body, because this is something that I'm becoming familiar with now. But basically, when I get into a meditative state, I can feel my heart and I can feel it beating. But it's not like a conventional beat, which is about 75, 70 beats a minute. It goes down to about 30, thereabouts, 30 beats a minute. But it's, instead of being the normal bum bum bum, it's kind of like a woof, and there's a pulse of energy that's going out from my body, and I am physically and mentally aware of it, very much so. But when I change my finger positions, I can move it, or it moves to different parts. So if I was to move my finger position, it moves to this area, and I can feel the energy there, and then I can feel it here. So now I'm understanding, wow, I can actually move this chi or prana around my body as I will it, and that's what my fingers are doing. So it's just becoming this awareness of, right, okay, I've got this, how do I use it? Because we have all these books that tells us how to use things, but we don't have any books to tell us how to use this. We do, actually. They're called ancient scriptures, like the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, and so on and so forth, even the Quran for that matter. Now anyway, you start to move this energy. Yesterday I decided that, right, this is my church, this is my temple, I want to run it. I want to run it. My higher self has been showing me these things and it's been teaching me, so now I'm capable of running it, or at least trying. But I do understand that I'm a child and I'm learning to drive a very powerful car. So not everything is being given to me just yet. So what that means is that I've got in the vehicle, but there's no gear lever and there's no steering wheel. Not yet, because I'm still learning, and that's fine. So I get into that state and I'm having coherence between my brain and my heart, and you can physically feel it. If I put my hands above my heart, or if I touch in my heart region, I can feel that energy. But yesterday I decided I'm going to channel the energy straight up my chakras, and I'm going to shoot myself out the top of my head, like what happened to me a few months ago. How was I sitting? What was I doing then? And I couldn't really remember. And I decided, no, I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to will it. So I did. And it happened. And it didn't surprise me. It was kind of like, ooh, yes. But then it started, but it was more powerful than the last time. And then, because the mind is always there, but it's not allowed to do anything. But the mind was starting to get, ooh. Because that's what the mind does whenever it's confronted with anything new. It kind of goes, oh no, this is unknown territory. So it started to rear its head, the mind. But the watcher side of me, the warrior side of me, was like, no, full on, get stuck in. Put your foot on the gas, so to speak. So the mind was withdrawn, and then it took off. But it really ramped up a very powerful spinning energy, which they call the Ida and the Pingala. It's the serpent, and it goes up your chakras. And it went into my brain, and I got shot out the top of my head. And during this process, I saw the Eye of Ra again. Now, this went on for several hours, but the point I'm making is that you start to learn about the body. You start to learn about the mind. You start to learn about the science of your soul, your psychology. And then you start to be able to run your house. I used to work with a guy, he's an ex-German Navy frigate chief officer. His name's Bernhard Sass-Merbus. Grüß dich, Bernhard. And he taught me something called Plutchink's wheel. And it bored the pants off me back then. But, but it is relevant. And Plutchink's wheel is a study of human emotions. And it's a wheel. And you can look this up on the internet. Plutchink's wheel. And it's like each emotion's on there. It's like sadness, anger, envy, greed, happiness, joy, so on and so forth. But all of these emotions, they cross over and join with each other. So there'll be a particular emotion, then there'll be its opposite emotion. So I understand now that on the emotional battlefield, if you will, is that there is a center point, and that center point is related to the heart. But if that center point is being dragged left, right, up, down to all these different points on Plutchink's wheel relating to all these emotions, I'm speaking metaphorically now, then the body has got to react to all these different emotions, and the body's fucking hell. And one of the processes of meditation is to clear all this. Now, you'll find during meditation that you might feel extreme sadness, depression. You might find that you want to burst out into tears. But on the other side of things, you might start laughing. You might feel joy. Now, what's happening is that energy is emotion. Emotion, energy in motion. Now, any emotions that have become blocked or they've not been dealt with, now they haven't been released. They block up the system, so to speak. Now, this is an energy system. I'm not talking about the endocrine system. I'm not talking about the autonomic nervous system. This is about energy, and this energy is run by consciousness. Now, all of us have experienced trauma, without exception, from the day you was born to the minute that you are living in this precise moment. But the mind is not conscious of all the traumas because the subconscious mind hides it from you to protect you. That's how good Eve is. But by going into meditation, these emotions start to come up and it gets dealt with. Now, the whore of Babylon, Babel means confusion, is a subconscious mind that's confused, and she feeds all the bad stuff to Adam, and then Adam's confused, and then there's just fucking chaos. But the act of meditation allows that energy to be released, and you might feel after some meditations that you've become more relaxed, you feel lighter, and that's this stuff being taken off you. You might be meditating for a few weeks, and then for a few days or even a few months, you'll feel miserable, and you're emotional, but you don't know why. Accept it. It's a gift, and you've got to work through it and get it out. And the quicker you clear it, the quicker you can move on. But the harder you try and suppress it, the harder it's going to push back. And this is what people call the long night of the soul. Okay? So if people are meditating, they get through the long night of the soul quicker. Or they also call it the dark night of the soul, because all this suppressed stuff's coming up. And it's not just emotions, it's all sorts of things. Sexuality, everything, the whole shebang. And it's all coming up. And it's got to get out. And you get it out by accepting it. So when a particular emotion is presented to you, then you just accept it. How do you accept it? You center yourself. You love it. Acceptance is love. Okay? And then you can move on. When those energies have been cleared, you'll experience something that they describe as grace, where all the shame, all the guilt, all the wrongdoing, all the shit things you've done, that gets taken off you. You have been judged and found not guilty. Get it? And it's all taken off you, and you experience a great joy, a great gratitude, a thankfulness. You experience life differently. Okay? And then of course, but you keep on meditating, because there's more to the journey, all this energy. And basically what you're trying to do, the entire point of this is that you want to merge with God consciousness. And that's what they call the rapture. When I get shot out the top of my head, I'm being raptured. And then you come back again, you're like, ooh. And now, it's not just a buzz and the weird feelings and the, well, it's quite indescribable actually. There's more to it than that. You have greater understanding, you have greater consciousness, your insights, your brain waves, your brain has more neural plasticity. You're not so set in your ways. Okay? The house is more stable. It's built on a rock. Get it? It's not built on sand. But you also start to understand who you really are and what you're not. And all the old garbage is thrown away and you want nothing to do with it anymore. And this is part of loving the change. This is part of the new world order. And it's all in here, you see? Now those are those individuals that cling to the old paradigm, the old narratives, the old world order. Well, that's a sinking ship, you know, and you're the captain of this. And if you don't captain your ship correctly, it'll sink, and the captain goes down with their ship. Now, the other reason for meditation is then you can have destiny and not fate. Okay? The people that will experience fate in the end of this, their life has been nothing more than the fool's errand. They've used the name in vain, and the name is your DNA. You can activate your DNA with this, and consciousness will do it through you. The Father will do it through you. Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Okay? Through you. I still need to do a video about the so-called Lord's Prayer. But the end state is the rapture, okay? But it's permanent. And rapture, the word, it's a stupid Christian doctrine, but the word is harpazo, and it means to be caught up. And when you're caught up, it is finished. Okay? So you become God-man in the flesh. Now the raptures that you experience, you go up and then you come back down, very pleasant that they are. You're like, bugger, and you got to try, you know, but you keep trying and you keep working at it and you keep learning. Okay, and you're learning to rule this kingdom. Enoch walked with God, and then Enoch was not, because God took him. And basically Enoch was being taught by God, his brain. Okay, he's meditating, he's interacting with his brain, he's learning, he's walking with God. And then God took him. Then Enoch was not, because God took him. It's the rapture. And you know, he didn't die, because you can't, because your consciousness, you know, you get beyond the physical, you get beyond all the labels you put on yourself. you're this, you're that, your likes and dislikes. It's beyond all of that. So that's the point of meditation. What else could I add to that to assist people? Keep a meditation diary. I don't, because I'm just too lazy. But people, suggest keep a meditation diary, and you write in there, about your breathing, how you felt, and how you feel, in the time between meditations. Have an intimate relationship with yourself. That's what meditation is. And it is prayer. It is loving yourself. And the Apostle Paul said, they become lovers of self. Jesus said, love your neighbour as you love yourself. Okay, it would seem that Paul's a bit of a knob, because Paul's the ego that doesn't understand the spirit. Okay, that's why Jesus said to him, why do you persecute me? Paul comes from the tribe of Benjamin, which uses a wolf as its symbol. Paul, the ego, is the wolf in sheep's clothing. It was Paul that said there will be a powerful delusion or a deception sent on the world. Yeah, it's him, Paul. Jesus never spoke in those terms, did he? He said, is it not written in your law that you are gods? Now, the law is actually the Torah, which is the instructions for life, which is your DNA. And this is what you're tapping into, okay? Don't be scared of change. Embrace it. Because everything must go. This is going to be a paradigm shift that is outside of the realms of people to even begin to imagine. And when it starts to happen and they're on that ship, they will be. Me too. I've got a pretty good idea of what's coming, but they would, myself included, to see it actually roll out in front of me is going to be like awe-inspiring. But it has to happen in here first. This is why I know what's going to happen out there, because it's already happening in here. And the will of the Father, the promised lands and all the rest of it, it's already happening in here. So I'm waiting for it to happen out there, because that's the nature of this reality. And for far too long, we've had the low collective consciousness, which has generated this ridiculous reality. But now, there's a new master in the town, a new master in the house, and consciousness has raised. And that will affect the reality out there. And that's why it's all fucking nuts. That's why all the world's leaders think they're in charge, but they're not. They're fools. Anyway. Meditation should not be a chore. It's just, it's a relaxation thing. Even more, another thing with meditation as well, for those that want, that are actually seeking, the purpose of it is to seek enlightenment, is to seek the light within. Like Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22, let thine eye be single, and your body will fill with light. And he carries on to say, but if your eye is not single, your body will be full of darkness. And how deep is that darkness? So he's asking you a question. He's saying, how deep is your darkness? Well, time to fucking find out, isn't it? You don't want a black rock, people. You want a diamond. You want a crystal. A crystal. Okay, the pineal. So, when you're meditating, you see flashes of light. These two eyes, they collapse the wave function, and light becomes matter. It becomes physical. The pineal gland does not collapse the wave function, and then you receive from the metaphysical. So when you're meditating, you see a flash of light, you've got mail. And it takes a few days for the ego to realize what that mail was, because the subconscious mind, she opens it first. Because the subconscious mind, she's a wonderful woman, and she does all the housekeeping on your behalf. Your only responsibility is to meditate so your higher self can kiss her, Sleeping Beauty, and wake her up, so that she can influence you accordingly and take care of the house properly. As your house gets cleaner and the energy starts to flow, consciousness is doing this for you so that you can experience it, and then you'll start to learn. Okay? You're a disciple. You've been initiated into the mystery school. When the Kundalini rises, that's Genesis. That's your beginning, not before that. And you will see, for me, I saw loads of dots, and I was kind of zooming along in the galaxy, kind of being taken along on a ride. In fact, I wasn't in the galaxy, it was in the universe. And I was looking at these dots going past, and I was like, wow, that dot of white light, that's a galaxy. And then another galaxy went past, and I was like, wow, so myself, my higher self, was taking me on a Merkaba trip. Now, I never knew that then. I was just like kind of mystified, like, why am I flying past galaxies? And then they all started coming towards me, and then they all rushed at me. And there was this massive wall of white light, and boom. That's the enlightenment. The enlightenment. Ment means mind. The enlightened mind. That's where the journey starts. Genesis. And you'll find yourself being taught the things that you used to like, you won't like anymore. And this is where you have to be wise. When you're drinking your whiskey, do I really need this shit? Put it down, walk away from it. Your relationship with things, with material stuff, your relationship with people, maybe your wife, children, speaking from my own experiences. You'll be looking at them and recognize, this is me, that they didn't want me around anymore, so I left. You see things as they really are. You don't see things as you wished you want them. That wishy-washy shit, that's gone. Now you're confronting the real, and it's good. But it comes, and it's uncomfortable. You know, oh, if I leave, I'm going to have to get rid of this. I won't have that. Fuck it. Leave anyway. That was me. That was my journey. And you're all individuals. You have your own journeys to walk. And that's what meditation is all about. And embrace the change. Don't cling to dogmas, doctrines, or dung. Brush all that shit off. So those are my tips for meditation. And there's plenty of videos out there about meditation. But don't, if it sounds even remotely religious, walk away from it. If it sounds remotely new age, walk away from it. Okay? If you're looking for meditation tips, look for the individual that's talking about their own experiences, not groups. Stay away from groups, because groups have a habit of drawing you in. And there's a programmed, when a spirit is lost, it looks like seeks like. So a lost soul, a lost spirit feels lost, and it will join groups to feel like it belongs to something. Overcome that. Start treading your own path. You know, that difficult path. You know, the narrow one that you walk on your own. You know, the one that few find. There you go. That's enough of that. Take care, folks.